We'd start from the start with your cricket. How did you begin?
I began playing cricket probably at school, Matraville Primary, and there wasn't as many sports available in those days. So it was either cricket or swimming at Heffron Pool, now the Des Renford Aquatic Centre, or rugby league or soccer in the winter. So me and all my mates just sort of gravitated to cricket. Then when I was about 10, one of my mates said that his parents knew this bloke who was going to start a team at Botany United, a junior club down at Botany, and that the coach was only like 20 and he'd come around and pick some of the kids up if they couldn't get there. So he would come around, this guy Alan Cook, on a Saturday morning. We'd go down to Burralee or wherever and play cricket till under 12s. Then we graduated into B grade in the seniors. So from like 12 to 16 we were playing with men really, but still on the mats and on the concrete and just wearing the old sand shoes. So, but that was good playing with the men. It sort of made us grow up real quick, me and the boys, for sure.
And entering grade, how did that come about?
That's a really good story. I decided to have a break from cricket after sort of year 12, and I'd been playing on the mats, and I'd actually give it to this gentleman one day who was a bit older, and he was coaching this Marcellan team. What I didn't know is that he'd played first grade down here and made hundreds and double centuries for Randwick. And he rang up the Randwick secretary and said, there's this dude with an afro running around. He's like 16 or 17. He's quick and he's crazy. And you should ring him up. He might get into the grade side. So this secretary, Lyle Gardner, started ringing my home. I don't know where he got the number from. And I kept saying I don't want to. I just wanted to go surfing on a Saturday morning, go and play cricket with the boys out at Burralee or Pioneer Park on the mats. That was going to do me. And then one morning I was 10 minutes from going down the beach. I was waxed up, everything ready to go. And he rang and my mother answered the phone. And she said, yes, Mr. Gardner, he'll play. So she walked out the back and said, put your board away. Mr. Lyle Gardner from the Randwick Cricket Club has asked you to play 4th grade at Snake Park today. And I said, you'll play. I said, Mum, I haven't got any long whites or spikes. Go and borrow the whites. There was one bloke I knew that my age had long whites. So Mum rang his mum and I rode my bike down there and borrowed them. And a guy called John Warwick, who was opening the bowling at the other end, brought a bag of spikes down and one pair fitted me. So that was my first game in 4th grade in about October 1976 at Snape. I think my memory might be wrong, but I think I took 4 for 16 and that was the start.
How far in the future was first grade for you?
2 seasons of 4th grade, a season of 2nd grade, and then they made me play the next half of that season, so that was 79-80 in 2nd grade. Broke through into 1st grade the second half of the season and took a lot of wickets and hit a lot of people because there wasn't a lot of left arm bowlers, and I had a bit of pace in those young days, and that ball coming here was very unusual. They didn't know whether to duck or weave, so I hit a lot of 1st grade players that I think hadn't been hit like that before. Broke a couple of arms and found myself in the New South Wales squad for the start of the 80-81 season, which was, you know, this just, it happened really, really quickly. I was really lucky down here at Randwick that I had people like Alan Turner, former Australian opening batsman. He was captain of 1st grade. John Dyson was playing here. Ron Crippen, who'd played Sheffield Shield cricket for New South Wales, he was playing here. These guys were hardened, tough professionals, and in those days, everybody played grade cricket. Sheffield Shield wasn't on, or they weren't in the Australian side, they were playing grade cricket. So there was a lot of test players, ex-test players, Shield players, ex-Shield players, and the odd guy like Barry Knight, who'd played Test for England, playing at Mossman. There was Tony Gregg and his brother Ian Gregg played at Waverley, sprinkling of really good cricketers around. And these guys taught me very quickly, A, what I had to do to be a 1st grader, and then B, very quickly the next year, I was in that squad and I got selected for the first game.
What was that like? Because some of the greats of Australian cricket in that New South Wales squad back then.
It was, look, Dougie Walters and Johnny Sattler from the Rabbitohs were my 2 sporting heroes. Dougie for the cricket, Sats for the rugby league, and that South Sydney side was an amazing side. I could have had 10 heroes, but he was my stand-up hero. Doug Waters was still playing. So I met him, I was in the nets with him, playing state sort of games, possibles, probable games, state trials, with him and against him. Rick McCosker, Peter Toohey, Trevor Chappell, Steve Rickson, Len Pascoe, Jeff Lawson, Graham Beard. I mean, it was nuts. Ian Davis. I mean, I'm just going through these names in my head that had all played Test cricket or been under unbelievable Shield cricketers. Some of those guys had played World Series. And then I was in that team and I got picked for the first game in Brisbane at the Gabba. And that side had Greg Chappell, Jeff Thompson, Alan Border, Martin Kent, Ray Phillips keeping. I mean, just star-studded. So the first thing, I just couldn't believe I was there with these people that I'd watched, grown up with and read about, and I'm getting changed in the dressing room and Doug is there smoking a durry. It was surreal. It was surreal.
I guess it's the first time you've probably ever been to the Gabba.
It was the first time I'd ever been to the Gabba. I had a bit of an unusual career. After a few years of playing Shield cricket, I actually realised that most of the guys that I was playing with had played under 15 New South Wales or schoolboy representative or under 19s Australians, whatever, all in these rep sides. I didn't play any of that. I was more of a rugby league, and I still played rugby league till I was 20. I didn't want to give rugby league up because I loved it so much, and I had to make this decision, you know, did I think I was going to play grade rugby league or should I concentrate more on the cricket because I'd had this really quick acceleration with my career? And I think what happened was I just fell in love with cricket and there wasn't enough room for the crossover anymore. It was just about then that the two codes were really starting to separate. And I remember Graham Hughes, who was the last guy, I think, in the late 70s to play for New South Wales in rugby league and cricket in the same calendar year, but then it just got too tough. So Heaps, you know, gave the cricket away and concentrated on his rugby league career at the Bulldogs, or the Berries then, with his two brothers, and they had wonderful careers. But and it was amazing. It was surreal just being in their company. Like a couple of games later, we go and play in Perth, and there's DK Lilly and Terry Alderman and what? Rod Marsh keeping the wickets. It was surreal, but it hooked me real quick, and I started to love the fact that I was playing these longer games of cricket. Shield cricket's 4 days, and it's this amazing blossoming of a flower, the wicket changes, conditions, have to bowl differently, all of this sort of stuff. And then the actual chess game of cricket over a period of time, it just got me. I was hooked really early.
How did you end up in England then, a year or two later?
Well, my first season was 80-81, and a few guys from Randwick, Gary Bensley, Eric Higgins, Malcolm Brown, I was playing first grade with, had all been over to England to play club cricket. And they'd played at a club, one of them played at a club called Fleetwood in the Northern League up near Blackpool, and they said they were looking for a pro, and I'd had this first year of Shield cricket. I think I played 4 games and was 12th man for the other 5. Now, I didn't miss one. In those days, there was only 9 games of Sheffield Shield because Tasmania weren't a full member and you only played them once. I think 82-3, they became a full member of the Shield. You started playing them twice. So, and I just wanted to keep playing, and I'd heard England was a good time and played club cricket over there. You're just playing on the weekends. So I signed up for this club, Fleetwood, as their professional, and even signing that bit of paper with the word Fleetwood Cricket Club professional, it's a bit of responsibility. And I understood that responsibility really early. What you needed to do when you went over there was go real hard on the ground and give it everything, and spend a lot of time in the club drinking beer with the members and the opposition. And the longer you stayed at the bar in the club, the more money they made over the bar. And if you got really involved in the club, which I did, and I took one of my best mates, Peter Devlin, who's now the curator at North Sydney Oval and still a member of Randwick-Petersham, one of my closest friends. So he was the amateur and I was the professional. And we cut a bit of a swathe through Fleetwood and Blackpool. We played a lot of really good cricket, hard cricket. And then another phone call. Look, I think about some of the phone calls that I've had in my life, and there's probably 3 or 4 that have just changed the whole direction. The one from Lyle Gardner changed my life. If 10 minutes earlier, I might have left for the beach already, and I would have been down at Maroubra, and my mum would have said he's gone to the beach, but I was still out the back. Then I'm at home one day in Fleetwood with the people that I was boarding with. Edith was already 60, and Eddie was about 75. But they were lovely, lovely human beings and looked after me like a son. The phone rings. I'm usually out. Edith said, "Can you answer the phone, please, Michael?" So I pick it up, and it's Greg Geese, a guy who I'm from Newcastle who's in the state squad, and he's on an SO scholarship at Gloucestershire. So he says, "Widow Geesey." I went, "Geesey, what's doing?" He goes, "Mate, there's a couple of bowlers that have broken down at Gloucestershire. Mike Proctor and a guy called Brian Brain, who took like 2,000 first-class wickets, one of those guys. There's an opportunity if you want to come." I said, "I've got to ring the chairman." So I rang the chairman of Fleetwood. He said, "Go down." I got a train down the next day, had a trial, and this is where the fun started. I was getting £65 a week at Fleetwood. So I sit in the office of the secretary manager at that stage. He goes, "How much are you getting at Fleetwood?" I said, 65 a week. He said, "If you play a 3-day match for us, we'll pay you 250 quid. And if you play a 1-day John Player League match, we'll pay you 150 quid. Have you got an airfare home?" "No." "We'll pay for that." "Have you got a car?" "No." "We'll give you a car." And he said, "In fact, if you sign the contract today, I'll give you £1,000 cash." He said, "Have you got any questions?" I went, "Only one." He said, "What's that?" I said, "Have you got a pen?" And signed that. This was more money than I'd ever thought. So I play a couple of first-class games for those guys and a couple of one-dayers. The Australian team's touring. It's the Ashes series. It ends up being Botham's Ashes. But at the 5th test at Manchester, it's still in the balance. It's 2-1 their way with 2 tests to go. So I'm playing for Gloucester, and I'm sitting on the balcony at Cheltenham, and we're playing Hampshire, and Malcolm Marshall's running in. He's got 3 or 4 quick ones and hit 2 blokes in the head. So the whole team's padded up. And I'm last, of course, but 11, 10, 9, 8, 7 are all padded up, ready to go in. And another phone call comes out. And this bloke goes, "It's the manager of the Australian cricket team, Mr. Whitney." So I pick it up, and I think it's a mate of mine because there was a rumour that Hogg and Lawson were injured and they were going to need another bowler. But Carl Rackerman was there on a scholarship. There was a few other guys. This bloke goes, "You've been picked for the test starting tomorrow." I swore at him. I won't tell you what I said. "I'm going in to face Marshall soon," and hung the phone up. It rang back 5 minutes later, and it was Fred Bennett, the manager of the Australian cricket team, who told me to leave the ground immediately at Cheltenham, drive up to Manchester, to the Grand Hotel, and come to room 241. Reckon I got them pads off real quick, I'm telling you, because Malcolm was steaming. Got them off, left the guys, got up to Manchester, knocked on this door. Fred opened the door. I apologised profusely for swearing at him, thinking it was a G-up. And Kim Hughes was sitting on the bed, the captain of the side. And Kim said, "We're not going to muck around. You're debuting tomorrow after Lillian Alderman bowl first change. You'll be our 3rd seamer for the test match." Which I thought, again, he was geeing up. I thought they were just going to laugh and say, "Well, you've been added to the squad." I debuted the next day.
I think you tell a story about going into your room. Who was your room?
They said, "Grab your gear, go up into the room. We'll have a press conference in about an hour at 6 o'clock tonight. Release the news to the world." Really? There's your room key. So I go up and I put the key in the door, and there's gear everywhere. And I'm thinking, I wonder who they're rooming with. Mind you, there were 6 or 7 New South Wales players on that tour. So I thought they'll room me with Henry or Daiso, Trevor Chappell, Graham Beard, Stumper Rickson, someone like that. And in the corner, there was this beautifully crafted leather port. And on top, embossed in gold, was DK Lilly. No, and he walked in, about 10 minutes later, and I remember standing at attention like that. I didn't know what to do. He went, "No, Mike, no." And I'd met him very briefly in the One Shield game the year before. I got to say, he was just fantastic. He like just lifted the old rooster wing. And basically, look, he said, "You're in the best 11 available, mate. They must think you're good enough." And I kept saying, "But this is only going to be my 7th first-class game tomorrow, mate. We're there for you, mate. All you got to do is remember what you got on your chest and just give 100%, mate. If you bowl good, bad or indifferent, just give everything you got. That's all we're asking." That's all I needed to hear. So we go to the ground the next day. He kept me late, Dennis, where I was very embarrassed. I remember being 10 minutes late because he had a mate driving him to the ground, not on the bus. And I went with Dennis. Got there late, run into the dressing room, bumped into Jeff Boycott on the steps. Jesus. And Kim went, "Get here." Sat down, he said he does this to everybody who debuts. Keeps them late. Geez, I breathed out a sigh of relief then. We bowled that morning.
What's your memories of my call for you to come on?
Surreal because if you've just watched this Ashes series, the crowd was like that. Like not a seat vacant at any of the grounds. And up to that stage, Beefy had been captain for the first 2 tests, got a pair at Lords, and this is how they clapped the England captain off after the pair at Lords. So he resigned, they brought Brealey in. Then he did the Headingley thing. Then they did the Edgbaston thing where he bowled a spell and took 5 for 1, so he made that 149, and Bob Willis took 8 for, then he knocked us over at Edgbaston. So he was on fire, and the crowd were baying for our blood, which they do there and we do here when we play them. This is one of the greatest sporting events, the Ashes. I got it that day, but it wasn't until years later that I realised what this means to both countries, and I've played in 2 Ashes tests. But I remember Dennis and Terry Alderman opening the bowling and bowling magnificent spells to Boycott and Chris Tavares, who they told me in county cricket, he cut loose. He made the slowest 50 in English Test cricket history that game. And then Kim, warm up. Big hair. Just got the ball and you just want to get that first one out. So ran in, got the first one, and Chris Tavares sort of bunted it to square leg, and we had a fielder there. The clouds were lower than this ceiling of this stand, and they were dark. And I'm shining the ball, and Kim's come up and going, "You got the first one out, mate, good on you." Shining the ball, and I felt this spot of rain on my forehead. And by the time I got back to me mark, it's raining. So I bowled 1 delivery off the field. Off the field for about an hour. Come back on, bowled the next one, he might have got a single. And David Gower was in now. Bowled this one to Gower, and he's had a flash at it. It's gone straight to Graham Wood at first slip, burst through his hands, hit him in the mouth, dropped the catch, and he had to go off with a split lip. So this was like 3rd or 4th delivery. Got that out, got the over out. I still think, I'd have to check this, but I still think it's the longest debut over in Test cricket history. It had the hour break with the rain between ball 1 and 2. Graham Wood down, helped off the ground, and that over would have taken an hour and 5 minutes for me debut over. It's got to be the longest debut over in Test cricket history. And then 2nd or 3rd over I bowled, Gower had another flash, and he got caught in the gully by Graham Yellow, and I've got 1 for 8 off 3. And you're thinking, at such a young age, how easy is this? You find out real quick, it ain't that easy. We lost that test match by me getting out last in the 2nd innings. I still don't think I hit it, but Bobby Willis with the new ball, great bowler, hit me on the pad, went to Gatting at short leg. They've called for the number 11, doesn't matter, he's out. But it changed my life. It was surreal. All of a sudden I went from a guy who'd played 4 games for New South Wales and a couple for Gloucester to Australia's 313th Test cricketer, and played in the last Test as well at the Oval. And that was just another magic experience. I will tell you this story. After we lost the game at Old Trafford, the scorer comes in and he goes, "Mr. Whitney, you've set a record today." And I knew I'd got a duck in the first innings and a duck in the second innings. You were first Australian on debut to get a pair. I said, "Do I really want to know that? Do I really want to know that?" So it was the longest over in the history, first debutant to get a pair. I mean, it was. But look, rooming with Dennis, being with the team, Kim Hughes, mate, looked after me. Kim just looked after me. People ask me about Kim Hughes, and some people who are in the know, they say, "You played your first two tests under him." I go, "Yep." What was he like? Could not have been any kinder. He was just fantastic to me. So whatever people have got to say about Kim, mate, nothing but praise for that bloke. He was fantastic to me, made me feel really at home, made me understand what he wanted from me and what the team required. And again, Dennis, Rodney Marsh, they were all great. It was fantastic, mate. It was surreal. I got back to Australia and my life had changed. You know, I'd had a lot of press about it, and you go from being this bloke who's, you know, playing a few games for the Blues and that to, mate, you're in the Test side. But it took a long time to claw my way back in. A couple of seasons after that, I think I missed 83-4, 84-5. I had like 5 or 6 knee operations. I just couldn't get it right. Finally went and saw the great Merv Cross, the surgeon who had just invented the keyhole surgery, and he did a couple of things. And I remember waking up after the 5th or 6th op in the bed, and Merv was standing at the end of the bed, and he said, "If you do some bloody hard work, Widow, you'll be right." Well, that was it. I was on the leg machines and always been a runner. I'd loved running, and got back. So from 85-6 through nearly to when I finished, I was pretty much injury-free. Besides a broken arm, still plating my foot, but that was getting hit with the ball. But it was hard to get in that side, and there were a lot of great bowlers around. Got back in for a Test match in 87, which became more famous for blocking Richard Hadley, who is Sir Richard Hadley out now. And
how was that? Talk us through that over. The other day on amazing.
I've been at functions with Richard, and they've talked about, I go, one of the greatest moments in my career, given that my batting average was like 5 or 6. And then they've handed the microphone to Richard, and he has genuinely said, if not the most disappointing moment in my career. And then they've said, why would you say that? It was a great celebration of cricket. He goes, "Mate, I was just about to take 400 Test wickets to win the game for my country, to retain the Trans-Tasman Cup, and I couldn't get Whit or Craig McDermott out." Mind you, I sparred a fair few and let a couple go, but that was, look, going in, there was so much riding on that. I hadn't played a Test for 6 years. I wanted to perform, and I think I took 4 wickets in the game, 2 and 2, and bowled okay. Tony Dotter made his debut in that game and took a 6 and scored 50, first time since Albert Trott in 1904, so it was great for Dotters. But Alan Border hadn't won a series as a captain up to that stage, and we were up 1-0, and they had the Trans-Tasman Cup. So walking out with 5 overs to go and about 35 runs, unless Billy McDermott slaps half a dozen 6s or 4s or a couple of whatever, he knows I'm not going to get 15. And I remember he was standing at the door, and the look on his face is like, "Just hang in there." We just patted me on the shoulder. So I knew it was really important for him. I knew it was important for the team, and it was important for me.
What were you talking to yourself? It looked like you were talking to yourself, maybe. You didn't say that in commentary.
Concentrate, watch the ball, watch the ball, watch the ball. You know, batting wasn't my great strength. When you're coming through the ranks in my days, you just bowled and bowled and bowled, and you had a hit in the dark for 10 minutes with the boys throwing you a few. So I never really... But what the boys at New South Wales, John Dyson, in fact, tells a story about underarming balls to me when I first got in the side and I was missing them. So they got me, and Steve Waugh would throw balls to me in the nets. Get behind it, Widow. Defence, technique. Watch the ball. So they actually got me into this place where I could hang in there maybe for a little while. But the circumstances, I mean, Richard had bowled 30 overs or something that day. He'd taken his second 5-for in the match, another 10-for. The second last over, there were some very close LBW calls off Danny Morrison, and Dick French, the New South Wales umpire, said, nah, that's not out. Good on you, Dickie. Dickie's my man. I've actually asked Dick about that years later. I go, Danny Morrison, second last over, Craig McDermott. He goes, Widow, in my opinion, not out. That's my man, Dickie. So some very close ones, but of course not out. And then we got to that last over. The question mark I asked myself immediately was, how the fuck did I get down the non-striker's end? Or down the, no. How the fuck did I get down the striker's end and Billy's at the non-striker's end, sitting on his bat, who could actually bat a bit? So, you know, look, I've watched that footage a number of times. Richard is just spent, but still doing the business. I was really surprised that he didn't bowl me a bouncer to like try and force me back. He had a great bumper. Played and missed one or two, let a couple go and blocked the last two out. And that was a significant moment for Australian cricket. Alan had won his first series as a captain. We battled really hard. It was the start of the emergence of some really good players. Boone, you know, that's been in the side for a couple of years, but they would just start. Steve Waugh was there. Merv was around. Billy McDermott. Bruce Reid was bowling as well. Heels was playing. They all ended up super legends, mate. And we all knew there was enough there to be a really good side. It just needed something to click. And maybe that day helped. But people still pull me up. It's 2019, right? And they go, the day you blocked Hadley out. And I go, yep. I was in a pub in Darwin. What, mate, just stories like this still. They go, mate, you could have heard a pin drop, and the moment you blocked that last delivery, the whole joint just erupted. I've had 1,000 stories like that. To Richard's credit, if you watch that footage, he immediately puts his hand round, he taps me on the head and he says, you did a great thing for Australian cricket today, Widow. Not like abuse, you got lucky or unbelievable. So that moment for him and me, I didn't realise, but it was the start of a really lovely friendship I have with him. The other part of that story, if you don't mind me telling you, is this. Ian Smith ran up with the ball and he said, you've earned this today. And he gave me the ball, not thinking it should have been Richard's. He took 5-for. So I kept that ball with the other balls that I've got, half a dozen ones that mean a lot to you. 20 years go by. I'm doing a couple of gigs with Sir Richard, Sir Ian and Sir Viv, and I'm the MC. And one night at dinner after this gig, Richard goes, that ball. I go, I knew what he was talking about. I went, what ball? He goes, the one from 87. I go, yeah, have you still got it? Yeah. He goes, oh, it's the only one of my 36 5-wicket hauls that I don't have. I went, unlucky. My ball. Smithy gave it to me. So a couple of years later, they did the same thing. I'm emceeing that again. Gets to like 2014, and he's asked me 3 or 4 times, and I start to think, well, it's really his ball. If I took 2 7-fers, I've got both those balls. Mate, they're like gold to you. So the 2015 World Cup comes to Australia, and the finals, New Zealand, Australia, down at the MCG. Get a call from a mate of mine who's organising a gig for all of the heavies, all the 3 nights are going to be there. He goes, you've told me about the ball. This might be a good opportunity. He said, unannounced, we'll just get you up on stage. I said, right, fly me down. So this is the night before the World Cup final. Got the ball in my pocket. I've had it for 27 years, I think. So Mark Nicholas goes, oh, Mike Whitney's here, we're not sure, but they might come up. So he gives me the thing and I start telling a reduced story. Got Richard up. I said, and that ball, Richard? He goes, oh, that ball. I said, the ball you took 5-for with, mate. The only one that you haven't got out of your 36 5-fers. And there it is. And I said, I'm going to give you this ball on permanent loan. It's my ball. Ian Smith gave it to me, but I want you to have it and your family to have it forever. Mate, he took the ball on stage, put it in his fingers like that, outswing it, and then the little tear, which then got me real emotional. I was, the emotion in him, his set's now complete. He's been waiting 27 years. We did so much media about that. I got emails from sporting people and politicians in New Zealand saying, for trans-Tasman relationships, what you did to give Richard this piece of memorabilia, which quite rightly was his, was unbelievable. And since that day, Rich and I have been pretty close, and we're at another function last year, and his wife, Lady Di, was there, and I said, how's my ball going? She goes, it's right at the front door as soon as you open, with the story right at the front door in this glass cabinet. So, over a bloody cricket ball, I mean, you just wouldn't think, would you? But I feel really good about giving that back to him. It was his. He earned it, he deserved it. I know how tough it is to get a fiver in Test cricket. I've had it for 27. I've looked at it a few times. Take it back. It's mine on permanent loan forever at his venue.
The other time you started with the bat was the Tui's ad.
The Tui's ad. Well, I got back from England on 1981 to a little bit of fanfare and more notoriety. And New South Wales was sponsored by Tui's at the time. They'd been sponsored by Tui's for a long time before that and for another 10 years. So they'd done one of those How Do You Feel ads, which you may remember was Dennis Lilly bowling to Steve Rickson and Stumper hooks him and then they get in and do that. Well, they wanted to do more. So they picked me and they picked Dirk Wellham because Dirk made his debut in the 6th Test over there and scored 100 on debut, which was bizarre. He punched one to cover and it was a waist-high catch, like one of those to Jeff Boycott on 99 and Boyks went and dropped it. And then Dirk got his 100 on debut. So Dirk's rare. He got 100 on his Shield debut, first class debut, and 100 on his Test debut. So we get back. Dirk had a lot of profile and was probably going to be the next captain, and he was after Rick McCosker. So us two. All of a sudden, Dirk, they didn't want Dirk. I don't know why. And Steve Rickson and Peter Toohey were working for Toohey's. Peter Toohey was actually a chemist brewing the beer, and Stumper was doing their promotions and marketing. So Steve Rickson from the last ad, Mike Whitney, yep, you're going to hit 3 runs off Joel Garner. Like Alan Border and the best players in the world were struggling against Joel Garner. Anyway, we play a Shield game in Adelaide and we go to Football Park in Adelaide, which didn't have a square. It was a Aussie rules venue. So the West Indies turn up and they had Stumper batting and another guy from South Australia, I can't remember his name. Well, it's like bowling on the outfield. Joel, trying to look after everybody. So it just couldn't get this proper carry and the proper bounce. So they bring in a steel plate about 10 foot by 10 foot. So 3 metres by 3 metres. Bring in a steel plate and they put that down on the, and Joel's hitting the plate and all of a sudden they're just zinging through and this guy whoop, nicks one and they take the catch. Gordon Greenwich takes the catch. That's him. He's out and he goes, not batting on that, like the Joel Garner on the steel plate. So then I come in and I've got a cover drive in. 2 hours go by and we haven't got the shot yet. And Joel comes up and he says, I can't bowl anymore. My arm's 8 foot long. I bowled a 2 hour spell. And he's trying to shot him up there so I can get, he said, stop, I've got another idea. You just film me bowling and film Widow playing the cover drive and I'm going to throw it from behind him and time it perfectly so, because they can't bowl no more. And that's what happened. They reset the thing. Joel shot this one and I timed it perfectly. So after all these years, there's the admission that I never hit the ball. I've lived on that too for you. So out there, Viv slides, we run 3, it's all over. We've got to finish it at the SCG about a month later. What I don't think about is, I've got the massive afro. I just said 2 weeks after that, I'll go and get a haircut. Then I turn up like a week later. They've got those things in, trying to flick it out, but it's really neat. Bit like this, the start of the thing, I've got curls hanging down my face, and it became a bit of a, you know, one of those questions. What's the weird thing about Mike Whitney in that too? He said, well, he had a haircut halfway through it. But I do remember we had some surf club boys turn up at the SCG to be the crowd on the hill. They had a lot of beer there in eskies and in tins and that. And they specifically said, no drinking till like 1 o'clock. It was all drunk by 1 o'clock. And if you look at the ad, there's blokes with cartons on their head. Mate, they were blind. It was a massive day. So again, what happened with that was I'd had this spike in my profile from the test match and those test matches, and then this ad, to the point where I'd be out with me mates at Randy Wick's or the Searles Club or the Coogee Bay Hotel, and someone had come up, some bloke had come up and go, oh, I know you, mate, you're the actor on that bloody cricket ad. And I'd try to humbly say, well, I actually play, I'm a bowler, mate, and but the profile was so high that they just thought it was like a staged ad with the West Indies, a lot of people. But people still talk to me about that ad. It was 1981.
That's spontaneous, throwing the can up like that when you're walking?
Yeah. They just said, come up and someone will give you a can, do whatever you want to do. And that was at the SCG. That second day, they were all blind, those blokes in that ad. They were blind, mate.
Now, was that the forerunner, do you think, for your TV career? Your cricket's finished and you've got, you know, a little bit of a lull, I think you said, and then another phone call.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that, and I made a fair few ad campaigns for a lot of different people. We did another ad for Tui's. I did one for Australian Pork, and I really enjoyed. And it wasn't an ego thing. I just loved watching the process and setting it up and where the lights were and stuff like that. But I never really had thought about going into TV full time. So yeah, after I finished, I retired in February 1994. What a tough day that is for any professional sportsman doing any sport, anytime. That last day that you know, and I'd hurt my knee again. I just had my 9th knee operation. I tried to come back. I was 35, Nelly. The body's just starting to say, mate, give me a rest, bro. Like, I'm tired. And you're pushing and you've got to do more to maintain that level of fitness. And then I remember I was sitting with my then wife down at Bronte Beach and just said, I can't do it anymore, I've got to retire, and cried for about 20 minutes. I just couldn't stop crying because there's so much effort, you know. I mean, we spoke about Botany United, junior career club. I didn't realise then, but it started there. You start learning the game there as a 10 and 11 and a 12-year-old, and fell in love with the game, and then played as a professional, and then you know physically you can't do it. And look, in my day, I was a little lucky that I did an apprenticeship at Qantas as a ground engineer. I could have gone back and done that, I suppose. But there's a lot of sportsmen that were getting to that age at mid-30s, retiring. There wasn't enough money to carry you through for the rest of your life. You had to go and find something else. A lot of blokes went into sales. They worked for Coke or Rothmans in those days, or Tui's, all that sort of stuff. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I got involved in a promotion and marketing company, which was an office job. Going out to see clients and that, but the office, not an office dude. And out of the blue, I get a call from a bloke who said, I'm making a program on the ABC called Great Ideas about Australian innovation and invention. The guy that was going to host it can't do it. I saw you speak at a function, thought you were hilarious. I mean, I was telling a few of these stories, a little bit embellished, but, and would you like to come and host this show? I went, no, mate, I've got this promotions and marketing. I appreciate it, but thanks. Mate, he came into the office. When he left, my two partners went, what's that? I said, it's this guy wants me to host this TV show on the ABC. They went, go and do it. I went, you sure? They went, go and do it, mate. See how it might be beneficial to our So I went and did 13 episodes of great ideas. Now, the irony of that was, one of the blokes that was directing my work ended up being one of the blokes that invented Who Dares Wins. So I had that connection with this guy, Adrian Brandt, the year before all that happened. And because I'd worked with him and he's, you know, I was a bit punchy and ready to go and keen as mustard and just working on that level, when he sidled up with David Mason to create Mason Brand Entertainment, they come up with this idea. He went, Mike Whitney, or more like Mike Whitney, he was from London. I work with this bastard and he's fucking funny, you know. So, but to go back a step, I finished that and I really enjoyed it. And the bloke who was running Channel 7 at Epping was a guy I played first grade cricket against. He batted number 3 for Union New South Wales, Chris Chapman. And he was the boss out there. He said, I've seen this stuff on the ABC, come out and see me. So I went out and he said, I want you to, why don't you do sport for us? And as you know, anybody that retired from sport here went to Channel 9 and did the cricket. So this was a little bit, and I'm a bit weird like that. If everybody's doing it, I'm not doing it. I want to do something different. So I said, I don't want to do sport, Chappo. He said, what do you want to do? And then I think I danced around his office with a bowler hat that was on his coat rack. And he said, entertainment. I went, yeah. Now, they'd made about 10 episodes of Sydney Weekender. And he said, if you start on January 1, 1995, you can learn the ropes of being a TV host on this show, Sydney Weekender. So I was doing that. A month or two later, Who Dares Wins come with Adrian, that I'd worked with on Great Ideas, and his partner, David Mason. And then about 2 months after that, we had Gladiators as well. John Alexander was the ref, but Wimbledon was starting or something, and JA had to go to do the tennis. They went, we need you on Gladiators as well. So within 6 months of starting at Channel 7, I had Sydney Weekender, state-based, Who Dares Wins, How Weird's This Show, and Gladiators, How Weird's This Show. It was, again, surreal. I just had no idea that my television career, I didn't even know how long I was going to stay in TV. Was I going to do it for a year or two, 5 years? And all of a sudden I was in those 2 shows, Who Dares and Glads. Massive, man. Could not go outside. Couldn't, forget about the cricket. Cricket never got mentioned for a long time. You're going to dare me? Where's Tanya? Every bloke wanted to know where was Tanya. And Gladiators, I could go on that Gladiators and beat all them blokes. It was surreal, and it was like that for a number of years.
And Sydney Weekend is still going strong.
Yeah, when those shows finished, I mean, I had an opportunity to do some other stuff for Channel 7. I did the 2000 Olympics, which was here, and look, to be involved in that with the host broadcaster in my hometown, being an athlete from Sydney, it was, mate, that's one of the great highlights of my television career working. There's been a lot of highlights with Channel 7, a lot, but that, to be able to work on the Olympics here in Sydney and what happened in our town over that period of time was just wonderful to be in. I then went and did the Commonwealth Games in 2002 in Manchester, which was great as well. But yeah, Who Dares, by a couple of years, they'd sort of, you know, run their race, but that was the emergence. Who Dares Wins was right at the start of reality TV. I suppose at this stage I need to apologise to everybody for some of the shit that's on there now. Hell. But Who Dares was the catalyst with 1 or 2 shows in America for this and now it's 25 years old. It's an amazing genre. And then Gladiators finished as well. And then Sydney Weekender was there. And I just thought, I just wanted to drop off this massive mountain for a little while and just get involved. At the same time, Sydney Weekender was taken over by a bloke called Alan Dungy as the executive producer, and I worked with Alan for 20 years. In a work sense, probably the 20 best years of my life, because when I learned what the show was about, Alan and I actually worked together with ideas and we collaborated on the show. And the foundations were hammered in by the first boss, Charlie Wood, who got moved back into news. And then Alan and I worked together for the next 20 years. And to see look, the show's been on air 26 years now. TV shows don't last that long. People are happy if they get a series like Great Ideas, 13 eps. You get a year, 2 years, 26 years. So those early foundation stones in the framework was crucial.
One of your other great loves, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Just discuss or take us through your role in getting them, helping them get reinstated 20 odd years ago.
Look, when they asked me to join Group 14, which was this group, you know, Don Lane had started, number 14 as the supporter, and we were struggling a bit. And it all started with my father. My father grew up in East Lakes Mascot, die-hard Rabbitoh people. My sister and I were just from the day we were born. And Dad, my father died when I was 16, but he used to take my sister and I out to the Paddo Hill because Souths, in my early days as a kid, played the round match of the day there most of the time. Then in 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, we played those grand finals in a row and lost one against Balmain Tigers in 69. And we went out to a couple of those games. And Sats was my hero and all this. So I'd had this love of the club and thought when I was playing rugby league, particularly at Mascot, that was a feeder into the Rabbitohs. I played a couple of sort of possibles and probables games, and I had some thoughts of maybe trying to play grade rugby league. So I loved it. It was my first love. So then I get asked to go on Group 14, the club's struggling a bit. Before I know it, I get asked to go on the board. That was another emotional night. My father already passed away, and when I agreed to go on the board at South, I just thought, how would he feel about this? His son being, you know, a director and a board member at the Rabbitohs. So what it turned out to be that was our last year, and we got punted out at the end of the year. And then for the next couple of years, I mean, look, I struggled to remember, I think, a lot of it because it was just board meeting, so-and-so in there, someone out in this board meeting, raise money, clubs out, no players, no sponsors, off to court. And I'd never, in a professional sense, worked at that level before. I mean, I didn't know about, you know, blood on the boardroom table and all this sort of stuff. And really, I didn't really understand the relationships that South had. I knew the juniors in South were close, and I knew South had these sponsors and the players, but I really had no idea. But I learnt very quickly. And in the end, I accepted the position as deputy chairman next to George, and was there right up until the start of the last court case, which was crazy. The first two court cases were just, well, I'd never been involved in anything like that either. I mean, it was just so heavy. And it looked at a time where we weren't going to get through, particularly after the second court case. There seemed to be these roadblocks that the law or the people we were fighting against just kept putting up here and there. And you know, they were in control of the press pretty much, and the press was negative and it was always slewed their way. I mean, I even remember when we had those marches, the first one was huge. There was like 40 or 50,000 people there. The next day it was reported as a paltry 15 to 20 turned up. And I remember asking this copper, who was the sergeant in charge of all those events in the city, he said to me, 45,000. Then the second one happened. There was like 70 or 80,000 at that one. Again, it was reported, you know. So it was an uphill battle, but in the end, we won that last court case, and we re-entered the competition. That was a huge moment for everybody at South. I'd thought for many years after that, it took a little bit out of me, that. I just didn't realise the level that it was going to be on, and you know, there was a bit of underhanded stuff going on as well with some areas of our opposition. And I wondered for many years, was I ever really going to feel satisfied about that? Then 2014 came along. And I'm in a coffee shop called the Coogee Bakehouse up near the cemetery at the top of Malabar Road there. And I run into Madge, who I hadn't met. He goes, I know you're a tragic. Tragic, mate. Tragic. Live, breathe, die, eat Souths during the winter. He said, why don't you come down to training? I said, oh, mate, that'd be great, mate. And I knew a few of the boys, you know, not all of them. So I went down to train and met a few of the boys, GI, Sam, you know, the twins, and everybody was there. It was great. You know, Reno and Johnny Sutton's a Maroubra boy, and I see Sutto down the beach sometimes, so he's a good bra boy. Sutto, and a good lad. Man, a few words, but tough. And then they played a game at the SCG, and they were using the home dressing room. And Madge said, I want you to come out and talk to the boys about the home dressing room. So I gave them the rundown on how special that place is. And what people don't realise about the home dressing room is that it's the New South Wales cricket team's dressing room. Has been from day one. We lend it to the Australian cricket team and other people to get changed there, but it's ours. It's the home of the Blues. That's our home dressing room. So I talked them through the history of the ground, SCG. I've been going out there, like I told you, since my father took me out there when I was 6 or 7 and played 15 years of cricket on that ground. I have here Coogee Oval and I have the SCG in here. So for me to be able to speak to the Rabbitohs in the home dressing room where I'd spent 15 years about this ground I love, they win the game. I think they played Manly. And they go again. And then they're in the 8, and they're in the 4, then they're up the top, and they're... Madge come out to training with her, with Michael Andrews. Kathy Freeman came out the night before the grand final, handed out the jerseys. I was there that night. And we win. We win. I can't remember whether it was when GI scored or Adam Reynolds scored at the back end of that second half. And I couldn't go to the game. I'd already agreed to do a gig over at Manly or somewhere months before. So I heard the first half on the radio driving back, got booked for speed and got a ticket for going through a bloody speed camera. And I watched the second half on my own in my lounge room. But Mark Ellison had already rang up and said, I've got you a thing for the after party gig, win, lose or draw at the juniors. Well, it was one of those tries, I can't remember which one, but I just, in my own lounge room on my own, yeah. I'm thinking, I'm glad there's no one here. Whoa! Started crying again because that was really heavy stuff when we were out of the competition. I don't think people realise unless you were right in the mix, it was serious, top end of town business, and they don't like losing, and we beat them. Then this for me was the payoff. Of course I went up to South Juniors through the back door, and all of those people, Ray Martin, Andrew Denton, Mikey Robbins, the Lissing brothers, Deirdre Grusevan, Laurie Brereton, all of these people who had done so much behind the scenes to get South back, all came to that gig. And I remember walking over to Sam, who had the smashed cheekbone. He's crying, hugging him. But the big moment for me was John Sutton. We saw each other, two locals, beeline, and he just went, "Widow, we did it, we did it." And we just started crying on each other's shoulder. So classic moments, and that moment, those moments there were my payoff for those couple of years that was such hard work on that board. But it did nothing but deepen my love for the club. I haven't had much to do with them this year. I've been asked to go out a few times, but actually couldn't make it because of other commitments, but they know I'm there. I've met Wayne Bennett in other circumstances. He'd already know that just call Widow if you want him to come down, because that's my other love, mate. The South Sydney Rabbitohs, the greatest club in rugby league anywhere in the world, and we almost lost them. And I'm really proud that I played just a little part. What they did for that part I played is they gave me life membership a few years later. I cried again that day. I took my mother along to Redfern Town Hall, and not short of a word most times, but that day I just, you know, I'd loved this club from the day I was born, and to be given a life membership to the Rabbitohs. I understand the cricket stuff, but huge, huge emotional day, and to have my mum there was awesome.
You're 60 now, Whit. What are you doing with your life? You're obviously still involved with cricket, and you've got the dinner engagements, lunch engagements, sportsmen's lunches, and the band I think might be in recess at the moment, but just talk us through what you're doing now.
Yeah, I turned 60 in February. That's another milestone. Really? Do those sums again. Still at Sydney Weekender in my 25th year. As I said, the show's been going 26 years, but I've pretty much been the one host, and I want to do another year at least. President of the Randwick-Petersham Career Club in my 19th year as president, and being the only president. We merged Randwick and Petersham Marrickville in 2001, so I've been the only president. I told them when I accepted that position that I'd do it for a couple of years, and now I'm in my 19th season. And it's like South Sydney, Rabbitohs. You know, when you've got an entity that has, you know, we've got 100 players, we've got 100 volunteers. We need relationships with the councils, green options who are doing the ground, everything like that. And I've said a few times, right, once I cross that off and that off and that off, I might try and work out an exit strategy. But what you don't realise is then that and that and that appears. And then that comes along and this needs doing. So there's always something to do. But look, with the cricket club in particular, if it wasn't for the Randwick Cricket Club that I played for, I don't have a life. And the guys down there, I mentioned a few earlier, Lyle Gardner, Alan Turner, John Dyson, and other guys like Johnny Hayward, Johnny Johnson, Ross Davies, these blokes who were senior members of the club made me believe and put their trust in me. So this is my repayment to the club, and I could be the president forever and really feel like I haven't paid that debt back. I could do the presidency till the day I die. I still feel like I'm in debt to Randwick and Randwick-Petersham Cricket Club. But, you know, that's just in my head. So Sydney Weekend is great, the cricket club's great. The band went for nearly 14 years, the Mike Whitney Band, and we decided to have a recess because it was sort of two entities. It was the Mike Whitney Band and Wayne Pearce and the Big Hitters, but just with us, same guys playing. So Junior would do his thing and I'd do my thing. And I think the band was not getting tired, but we needed to do something else. And out of the blue, Richard Cheekwee, who I'd played shield cricket with and played with me at Randwick, his brother-in-law's a great muso and had this setup called Oz Icons, which are pretty much the guys that I played with, that play with him as well. So now it's Oz Icons with Mike Whitney, Oz Icons with Mike Whitney and Wayne Pearce, Oz Icons with Wayne Pearce, and not that long ago, it was Oz Icons with Eric Growth and Mike Whitney. So this is the guru, Eric Growth Senior, who I'd met a couple of times, crossing paths over the years, but what a legend. We're on stage punching out Sweet Home Alabama or something, and I say to the guru, can you believe after all these years we're up on stage and he's playing guitar, just shaking his head. We had the best night. So we're hoping soon that we can have the guru, Junior and the Wit on one stage with all these magnificent players. And that sort of re-energised everybody. So the Mike Whitney Band and Junior Pearce and the Big Hitters might have gone, but this Oz Icons now is really stimulating everybody else and everybody that's playing, and mate, it's just wonderful. So that's pretty good. I'm still local.
Circuit too, still popular there, aren't you?
Yeah, look, I still get a lot of inquiries about speaking, but I've tried to just not do as much in that area, not for any reason. Probably never been much of a suit wearer, and you have to wear suits, and I had to wear me blazer in New South Wales and Australia and me blazer for the cricket club. But I just, you know, look, there's incredible money to be earned there, and I don't still mind doing it. But there were stages where I was doing 2 or 3 a week, and it just got too much. So I'm in a position now where I can pick and choose what I want to do, and that's really, really good, because some of the gigs I look at and I go, oh, you know, it's in somewhere I don't want to fly and got to spend overnight, but there's this one in Sydney. And one I did not that long ago was the Scots College Old Boys, where the haggis come out onto the table and a bottle of Glenfiddich 12-year was on every table. And by the end of the gig, the boys had had a very good day and I told some very funny stories. So yeah, gigs like that I still love, but just trying not to do as much overall. I mean, I'm 60 now. I keep saying this to people. The Mike Whitney radio station has been on loud for 40 years, really since 1980 when I was pulled out of it. I just want to back it off a few notches and smell the roses a little bit more, because sometimes I go places and you're in and out and people go, what was it like? And I go, oh, I didn't actually spend any time there, mate. I went there, spoke at this gig, went to bed, got on a plane and come straight back home. And that can be exciting, and it still is exciting sometimes, but just want to just turn him down just a little bit, yeah.
One question to finish up for a friend of mine. Do you remember in one of your books, the hardest guy to get out?
Sam Mercedes, the hardest bloke. You do these, you know, questionnaires. You go age, you know, star sign, school, such and such and such, other loves. Hardest batsman to dismiss. There was Bliss bloke who played for Manly. I don't know what it was about him. And I played him in lower grades. Yeah, and we finally got up, yeah, short of stature. Sammy Mercedes. Do you think I've got Viv out, Brian Lara, Sachin, David Gower, like some real... Think I could get fucking Sam Mercedes out? Couldn't get him out. So I used to write, hardest batsman to dismiss, Sam Mercedes, Manly Cricket Club. And they'd go, who's that bloke? I go, it's the bloke I can't get out. Amazing. And he always managed to score runs against us. Hilarious. Hilarious.